Welcome to another episode of She's Evolving. I'm Elena, a medical endocrinologist, and today we are opening the door to a room that many of us keep locked, even from ourselves. We are talking about the heavy, often silent burden of maternal guilt, the crushing weight of self-demand, and the long, necessary journey toward liberation.
And I'm Julia, a clinical psychologist. If you've ever sat in your car for 5 extra minutes just to breathe before going inside to your family, or if you've ever looked at your sleeping child and felt a wave of, I should have done better today, then this conversation is for you. We're going to peel back the layers of why we do this to ourselves, and more importantly, how we can stop.
You know, Julia, as a doctor, I see the physical manifestations of this every single day. Women come into my office with thyroid issues, chronic fatigue, or cortisol levels that are through the roof. And when we start digging into their lifestyle, it's not just that they are busy, it's that they are spiritually and mentally exhausted from trying to meet an impossible standard of the perfect mother.
It's an epidemic, Elena. It really is. We've been sold a version of motherhood that doesn't exist, and yet we punish ourselves daily for not achieving it. Today, we want to change that narrative. We want to move from I'm not doing enough to I am enough. The music swells slightly and then settles into a low, steady pulse. Let's get personal for a moment. Julia, even with all your professional training, do you still feel that pang of guilt? I know I do. I remember when my kids were younger and I was finishing my residency, I would pull 24-hour shifts, come home, and instead of sleeping, I'd try to bake organic cookies or organize play dates because I felt I had to compensate for my absence. I was running on fumes, but the guilt was the fuel that kept me going, and it was toxic fuel.
Oh, Elena, absolutely. Even now, with my children being older, the guilt just changes shape. It doesn't disappear. I remember one specific evening. I had spent the whole day at the clinic helping other families navigate their crises. I came home and my son wanted to tell me about a problem he was having with a friend. I was so emotionally drained that I just couldn't listen. I snapped at him, told him I needed space, and went to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed and felt like the biggest fraud in the world. Here I am, a child psychologist, and I can't even hold space for my own son? That Superwoman mask is so heavy, and when it slips, the shame is immediate. It's that Superwoman myth that kills us. From an endocrine perspective, that constant state of I must be everything to everyone keeps the body in a permanent fight or flight mode. When we feel guilty, our brain perceives it as a social threat. Our cortisol spikes, our adrenaline stays high, and over time, that leads to systemic inflammation. We are literally making ourselves sick trying to be perfect. And psychologically, it's a cycle of self-betrayal. We betray our own needs to meet perceived expectations, and then we feel guilty for being resentful. It's a closed loop. We see other mothers on social media who seem to have it all together, the perfect house, the perfect career, the children who eat kale without complaining, and we compare our behind-the-scenes footage with their highlight reel. Exactly. And as women over 40, many of us are also dealing with the sandwich generation pressure. We are mothering our children while also starting to mother our aging parents. The self-demand isn't just about being a good mom anymore. It's about being a good daughter, a good professional, and a good partner, all while our hormones are shifting and our own bodies are demanding attention.
That's a crucial point. The self-demand often stems from a deep-seated fear of being selfish. We've been conditioned to believe that a mother's love is measured by her level of sacrifice. If you aren't suffering, are you even mothering? We need to deconstruct that. Liberation starts when we realize that our children don't need a perfect mother. They need a regulated, happy, and present mother.
Let's talk about the science of this for a second, Julia, because I think when women understand what's happening in their bodies, they can be a bit more compassionate toward themselves. When we are stuck in a cycle of self-criticism and guilt, we are activating the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. This shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for logic, empathy, and perspective. So when you are spiraling in guilt, you literally cannot think your way out of it clearly. That's so powerful. It explains why when we are in that guilt spiral, we can't see all the things we did do right. We only see the one thing we did wrong. From a psychological standpoint, this is often linked to our internal critic. This voice is usually formed in our own childhood, based on how we were praised or disciplined. If we were raised to believe that our value is tied to our productivity or our goodness, motherhood becomes a high-stakes performance where any mistake feels like a total failure of character.
And then there's the mental load. I talk about this with my patients all the time. It's not just the physical tasks of parenting, it's the invisible management. Knowing when the shoes get too tight, remembering the school spirit day, planning the meals, tracking the doctor's appointments. This cognitive labor is exhausting. And when something falls through the cracks, like forgetting it's crazy sock day at school, the guilt hits like a ton of bricks. But why? It's just socks. It's just socks. But to that mother, it's a symbol that she's failing at the invisible management. We have to learn to share that load. But guilt often stops us from asking for help. We think, I should be able to handle this. That "I should" is the most dangerous phrase in a woman's vocabulary. It really is. I should be able to work 40 hours and have a home-cooked meal on the table. I should be able to exercise 5 times a week and never be tired. I should be happy all the time because I'm lucky to have kids. These shoulds are like stones we put in our own pockets until we can no longer swim. And let's look at the impact on our daughters and sons. If they see us constantly apologizing for existing, for being tired, or for having needs, what are we teaching them? We are passing down the legacy of guilt. Liberation isn't just for us, it's a gift for the next generation. When I show my daughter that I'm taking a nap because I'm tired, I'm giving her permission to honor her own body one day. That is so true. I've had to learn to say to my kids, Mom is feeling very overwhelmed right now, so I'm going to go sit in the garden for 20 minutes. I'm not angry with you, I just need to take care of my brain. At first, I felt guilty saying it. Now I realize it's the most doctor-approved thing I can do for my family's health. And let's look at the impact on our daughters and sons. If they see us constantly apologizing for existing, for being tired, or for having needs, what are we teaching them? We are passing down the legacy of guilt. Liberation isn't just for us, it's a gift for the next generation. When I show my daughter that I'm taking a nap because I'm tired, I'm giving her permission to honor her own body one day. That is so true. I've had to learn to say to my kids, Mom is feeling very overwhelmed right now, so I'm going to go sit in the garden for 20 minutes. I'm not angry with you, I just need to take care of my brain. At first, I felt guilty saying it. Now I realize it's the most doctor-approved thing I can do for my family's health.
We received a lot of questions from our community before this episode, Elena. I think it's a good time to tackle some of these mom's myths that keep us stuck. One of the most common ones is, if I spend time on my career or my hobbies, I'm taking away from my children's well-being. What's the medical or psychological reality there?
Well, from a developmental perspective, children actually benefit from seeing their parents as multidimensional humans. A mother who is fulfilled and intellectually stimulated often has more quality to give during the time she is with her children. It's the oxygen mask principle. If you are gasping for air, you can't help anyone else breathe.
Exactly. And the myth that good mothers are always patient. Let's be real, patience is a finite resource. It's linked to sleep, blood sugar, and hormonal balance. Elena, you know this better than anyone. If your estrogen is plummeting or you haven't slept, your patience tank is empty. It's not a moral failing, it's biology. Thank you. I wish I could scream that from the rooftops. If you are in perimenopause, your brain is literally undergoing a rewiring. Your resilience to stress changes. So when you lose your temper, it's often a sign that your nervous system is overloaded. Instead of guilt, you need a snack, a nap, or maybe some hormone support. Another big one is the libido myth, or the partner guilt. Many women feel guilty that they don't have the energy for intimacy after a day of being touched out by children. They feel like they are failing as a partner. Touched out is such a real thing. When you've had a toddler climbing on you or a teenager leaning on you all day, your sensory system is saturated. The last thing you want is more physical contact. The liberation here comes from communication, explaining to your partner that it's not a lack of love, but a need for sensory recovery.
And then there's the working mom versus stay-at-home mom guilt. It's the grass is greener syndrome. The working mom feels guilty for not being at the school gates. The stay-at-home mom feels guilty for not contributing financially or using for degree. We are all feeling guilty for the path we didn't take.
It's a trap. The common denominator is the belief that we aren't enough as we are. We are always looking for the gap between our reality and the ideal. Liberation is about closing that gap by lowering the ideal, not by working harder.
Liberation is also about setting boundaries, saying no to the extra committee at school or the extra project at work so you can have time to just be. It's about realizing that no is a complete sentence and a vital tool for self-preservation. As we wrap up this conversation, I want to remind everyone that you are evolving. Motherhood at 30 is different from motherhood at 40 or 50. Your body is different, your needs are different, and the world is different. You are allowed to change the rules of the game. You really are. Maternal guilt is a thief. It steals your joy, it steals your presence, and it steals your health. Today, we are giving you permission, though you don't need ours, to let it go. Put down the stones. You've carried them long enough. This journey of She's Evolving is about exactly this, shedding the old skins that no longer fit us. The perfect mother skin was always too tight. It's time for something more comfortable, something more real. Thank you for joining us today. This was a heavy but necessary talk. If this resonated with you, please share it with a friend. We all need to hear that we aren't alone in this. Your body is listening to your thoughts. Feed it some kindness today. You are doing better than you think you are. Much better. We'll see you in the next episode, where we'll continue to explore what it means to grow, change, and thrive. Stay curious, stay kind to yourself, and keep evolving. Goodbye for now.
It's as if we have a court of law inside our heads, Elena, and we are always the defendant, never the judge. We prosecute ourselves for the smallest things, a forgotten school lunch, a sharp tone of voice after a 10-hour workday, or even for simply feeling tired. This internal prosecutor is fueled by a societal narrative that tells us a mother's love is measured by her level of self-sacrifice. If you aren't exhausted, are you even trying? That is the toxic question we often find ourselves answering.
And that's exactly where the biology of it all gets so complicated, Julia. When you live in that state of constant self-prosecution, your body doesn't know the difference between a real external threat and the internal threat of your own guilt. To your brain, the feeling of I'm failing as a mother triggers the same stress response as a physical danger. Your adrenal glands pump out cortisol and adrenaline. When this becomes a chronic state, which it often does for women in their 40s and 50s who are balancing teenage children, aging parents, and demanding careers, we see what I call the Superwoman Burnout. It's not just a feeling, it's a physiological depletion. Your thyroid might slow down, your sleep cycles get disrupted, and that brain fog people talk about, it's often just the brain being marinated in stress hormones for too long. It's a cycle that feels impossible to break because the guilt itself becomes a habit. We almost feel like if we stop worrying, something bad will happen. It's a form of magical thinking. But let's transition a bit into the myths that keep us stuck in this loop. I think it's important to dismantle some of these common ideas that our listeners send us every day. Elena, one of the most frequent questions I get in my practice is it selfish to want a life that doesn't revolve entirely around my children?
Oh, I hear that one in my office too, usually followed by a woman apologizing for wanting to go to the gym or take a weekend trip. Let's tackle that. The myth that a good mother is a selfless mother. From a health perspective, selflessness is actually dangerous. If you are selfless, you literally have no self left to regulate your health. If you don't prioritize your protein intake, your resistance training, and your hormonal balance, you won't have the physical stamina to be present for your family in the long run. We have to reframe self-care as preventative maintenance for the family unit. If the engine dies, the car doesn't move. You are the engine, not just a passenger.
I love that analogy. And from a psychological standpoint, being a selfless mother is actually a disservice to our children. If we don't have our own interests, hobbies, and boundaries, we inadvertently put the burden of our happiness onto our kids. They become our only source of fulfillment, which is a heavy weight for a child or a teenager to carry.
Liberation comes when we realize that showing our children a mother who values herself, who says no because she needs rest, and who pursues her own passions is actually the greatest gift we can give them. We are modeling what a healthy, evolving woman looks like. That leads us to another big myth. It's too late to change the dynamic. Many women feel that if they've spent 20 years being the do-it-all mom, they can't suddenly start setting boundaries now. They fear the pushback from their family.
And there will be pushback, let's be honest. When you stop being the person who does everything for everyone, the people who were benefiting from your overfunctioning might get upset. But that discomfort is the birth canal of your freedom. I often tell my patients that guilt is the price of growth. If you feel guilty because you're finally putting yourself first, it usually means you're doing something right. It means you're breaking a pattern that was no longer serving you. Elena, how do you see this liberation phase affecting a woman's physical health when she finally lets go of that crushing self-expectation?
It's transformative, Julia. When a woman finally gives herself permission to breathe, we see a literal shift in her biomarkers. Cortisol levels stabilize. When cortisol drops, the body can finally burn fat more efficiently, especially that stubborn midsection weight that plagues us in our 50s. Inflammation markers go down, sleep quality improves because she's no longer running through a to-do list of failures at 3 a.m. It's like the body finally gets the memo that the war is over. We aren't just talking about feeling better, we're talking about adding healthy years to your life. Longevity is built on the foundation of emotional peace.
So if you're listening to this and you feel that familiar knot in your stomach, that voice telling you that you should be doing more, being more, or sacrificing more, I want you to take a deep breath. Liberation isn't a destination. It's a daily practice of choosing yourself. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, I am a human being, not a human doing. You are allowed to be imperfect. You are allowed to have needs that have nothing to do with your role as a mother or a wife.
And remember, your hormones are part of this conversation. If you're feeling extra irritable or overwhelmed, it might not just be the kids. It might be that your body is crying out for support. Don't be afraid to seek professional help, whether that's a therapist like Julia to work through the guilt or a doctor to check your levels. You don't have to white-knuckle your way through this phase of life.
Exactly. We've spent so much of our lives nurturing others. This chapter, the She's Evolving chapter, is about nurturing the woman who did all that work. It's about reclaiming your identity. Who are you when the house is quiet? What do you love when no one is asking you for anything? These are the questions that lead to liberation. We've covered a lot today, from the heavy weight of maternal guilt to the physiological toll of self-criticism, and finally, the beautiful possibility of liberation. This is a journey we are all on together. I'm still learning to silence my inner critic, and I know Julia is too, despite her expertise. Oh, absolutely. It's a work in progress for all of us. But the difference now is that we have the tools and the community to catch ourselves when we fall back into old patterns. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. The perfect mother is a ghost. She doesn't exist. But a present, healthy, and evolving mother is very real, and she is enough. In fact, she's more than enough. That's a perfect place to end. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might be struggling with these same feelings. Let's start a chain reaction of liberation. Subscribe to She's Evolving so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll continue to dive deep into the topics that matter most to us as women in this incredible second act of life. Thank you for being here with us. Remember, you aren't just aging, you are evolving. And that evolution requires you to let go of the weights that were never yours to carry in the first place. Be kind to yourself today. You've earned it. Until next time, keep evolving, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep taking care of that wonderful woman you see in the mirror. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now, everyone. Take a deep breath and let that guilt go. You're doing just fine. Actually, Julia, before we go, I just thought of one last thing. We often talk about letting go, but we don't talk about what we're reaching for next. Liberation isn't just an exit, it's an entrance. I love that. It's an entrance to a version of ourselves that we perhaps put on hold 30 years ago. It's a homecoming. And to all our listeners, welcome home to yourselves.